So good night, Andrea. It's nice to see you
Hi.
again after all these years.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. And to be, a fellow filmmaker is pretty exciting for me to see you as a full-fledged filmmaker.
Yeah. I could definitely imagine, like, for you, it's a little bit of a like well, you can see a journey, right? Because in the
Absolutely.
when we met, I met you when you were making your film that just presented tonight. And
Yes. Mhm.
for me that meeting was one of the first times I saw like a filmmaker in action on the ground in St. Vincent. I had gone to the Garifuna, oh, I forget. This
Oh,
this conference that
conference.
happened
Yeah,
every
there was a
yes.
conference. Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
think it was maybe like the fifth Garifuna conference or something like that. Or was it the
Something.
first one? Yeah. And
I think, yeah, it was first or second, as far as I
yeah,
remember. Yeah.
yeah. But a lot of people were visiting St. Vincent and they were talking about Garifuna and about, the people who lived in St. Vincent before. And at that time, like I had just started to like discover the power in asking a question because, coming from like a post-colonial society, you're taught through habits and through what they call like bringing up and training and, brought up, see, you're taught to kind of like the in a space of servitude where you don't question, you just do as you're told, you don't provoke, you follow the rules, you keep your head down, and
That was your education.
yeah,
That was
yeah, that was my education. It was to consume and regurgitate British
I
colonialism
see.
that was trying
Okay.
200 years ago.
Yeah.
And,
Well, we're definitely in a
it,
post-colonial world right now. So with a lot more discussion and
yeah,
questioning about one's own history from the point of view of the person who experienced the history rather than from the history books.
yeah. But you may find that even though the world is in that space right now, and those of us who are like in that conversation and kind of like paying attention to it would be aware of it. But then there's a larger majority who are not aware, especially in a place like St. Vincent, who are not aware still of the historical origins of their ancestors or of their people, because like I say, the colonial system is still in place. The same books that I learned about the Black Caribs and the Yellow Caribs, the same books are on the syllabus today in the same, in the same
Wow,
secondary school I
that's
went
too
to.
bad. Yeah.
That- yeah,
I was hoping to get this film and the Garifuna Journey film into the education system in St. Vincent. I did
yeah,
try, but I was not successful. So if you
yeah.
have any connections, that would be great to get
Well,
these films. And I also have a very extensive study guide that can be used by educators or yeah,
mhm,
or even
okay.
at the university there.
Yeah. Well, I often hear like conversations from the local side about why it's important to reclaim the knowledge and teach the language and sometimes I feel like we're on the verge of something, but then it doesn't really happen. And
Oh,
I have to say that a lot of the movements in terms of like developing this knowledge on the ground in St. Vincent, it happens from people in the Garifuna diaspora. It doesn't I mean there are persons in St. Vincent who are point persons who you could go to, and this one, like in Greg's, there's John Nero, there's Tajo out in Sandy Bay. There is Mrs. Zoila Ellis Brown who started the Garifuna conference. But these persons are like key point persons, and
right.
they
What if
they do it
so,
like a labor of love and passion,
yeah, yeah.
and in terms of like creating structure and the government system, creating a way to facilitate that. It's not there yet. It requires people to like put in a whole lot more than what they have part-time, full-time to like do the bit that manages to get out, you know, like the
Yeah,
conference takes a whole lot of organizing,
yeah.
and then everything is usually very seasonal. Like around March the 14th, that's when everybody
Right.
becomes, and then
For
for the rest of the year,
National Heroes
it's
Day.
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
let me,
normal.
yeah. Let me ask you, is Sardo, Augustine Sutherland, is he still pretty active on St. Vincent currently?
He's a hardcore. He's active. I didn't really go to the this March the 14th, like the celebrations, but I'm
Yeah,
sure he was.
yeah.
Um, his at his house, when you go up to his yard at the entrance, it's like an indigenous structure, and
Uh-huh.
it's, I guess
Mhm.
it's the only thing that seems like a museum in Kingston, apart from where they have this the National Trust, where they house some of the pottery that they found. But
Okay.
Sado's, you know, it's the only thing that feels like a space that celebrates the indigenous memory. I
So
think he even has a canoe in the yard.
okay. In your film, you walk through a village. Was that his village that he built outside of town? I thought I remember when I was there, he was building a village at that
Well,
time.
yeah, the village that I walked through was it's on the seaward side of the newly built Argyle International Airport. And
Okay, I
what
know.
happened is,
Mhm.
yeah, when they blew up the mountain and moved the rivers and thing to make the airport, they found remnants of, an old civilization. They found pottery from different time periods, and they also
Mhm.
found post holes of structures that was a village. And then
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think I think it's University of Norway, I think, had a research and grant and something, and part of it was to develop was to recreate the village in the
Okay.
original post hole.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what it
Oh,
was.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I did want to tell the viewers that the way I met Akley in the first place, when I was filming on St. Vincent, I was going around and interviewing people, really random people on the street who were associated with the conference, the Garifuna conference. And I met Akley and asked him, I can't remember exactly what I asked you. Oh, I said, do you know your history? Or do you know much about the Carib history? And you were at a point where you were just trying to, you had a lot of curiosity about what was not taught in the history books. So I was capturing that on film. And as I said before, it was my interview with you that sort of affirmed the what I was doing on St. Vincent made a lot of sense and it was important. I guess my question is, do you see, is the film shown much on St. Vincent? Are people aware of it in the Carib community? Do you know?
I think people are very aware of the film in the Carib and in the Garifuna community.
Oh,
But
good.
like I said, being indigenous in St. Vincent is seasonal. So around the holiday that's celebrated as National Heroes Day, which is the day that celebrates Joseph Chatier, Chief of Chiefs, who was assassinated by the
Right.
British.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's when everybody becomes indigenous. But for the rest
Okay.
of the
It's
year, so around in March, people are definitely seeking out your film and looking for it, and it might even get shown
okay.
in a few places in March.
Okay.
But for the rest
Okay.
of the year, no.
Okay.
But yeah, I
Well,
I even met one of your characters recently.
which
It
one?
was a young guy, a young indigenous guy.
Uh-huh.
I forgot it, but I was actually doing an interview of him in another situation.
Oh, really? It's not Colin
Yeah.
Sam, or was it Nixon Lewis's son? Do you know much about
Yes,
him?
yes, 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 yes,
It was
yes.
Nixon Lewis's son. How is he?
No, he's
I
good.
have,
He's good. He's in Sandy Bay, and I was doing an interview he's a part of this program that's they're using vetiver grass to it's called Grow in Time. It's actually a program of Vonnie Rudette. Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay,
yeah, so it's they're using grass to create different things, mats, craft,
okay,
you know, and
yeah,
I met him as a part of that program.
okay. I
So
was
that's
very sad to hear that his dad passed away. I heard Nixon had passed. So, and he was in the film, he was talking, and also off camera, he was telling me all of the prejudice that was being directed at him at that time. I wonder, is that still going on as well? Is there still a lot of discrimination against Caribs? Do you know?
I would say there is something in the psyche of the Vincentian that still sees the Carib or treats the Carib as a sort of inferior in some ways, but not on a day-to-day, right? Not on a day-to-day. It might come off as a joke, like some of the old cliches still follow through today. Like there's this story of an incident that happened and some people drank this thing and
Right.
people still use the word, they make a joke of this horrible incident every time they
Yeah.
say this word. And that still goes on. During
Still
the
goes on.
eruption,
Wow. Oh,
during the
that was,
eruption, the last of erupted
yeah,
last
I know.
year.
Of course. Yeah.
So
I
I
know
was
it.
at a fish market.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
I saw that, I was in communication with some people on an island when the eruption happened. And it just brought back to me, when you look at the map of St. Vincent, where the Caribs were pushed up towards the north, so that specifically when Soufriere erupted, it would affect mostly the Carib community. And in fact, that's exactly what happened last year.
Yeah,
It was,
that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
so was Sandy Bay, were the people displaced? Are they still displaced, or are they coming back?
Some people have been displaced. They even had to create a sort of housing settlement for some people whose homes were completely destroyed.
Destroyed.
Um, well, not destroyed because of lava or anything like that, but destroyed because of the ash and the weight of the ash.
Yeah.
Yeah, the entire space was like covered over. You couldn't see the height, like the road, the pitch road. It was like driving through a forest. Like all of that was just, it was
Wow.
just like a forest floor with no, it was, yeah.
Has it recovered?
It has recovered. I would say it has recovered significantly, but there is like some added on or side effect challenges because the eruption sort of created new rivers and it opened up the path for
Oh,
old rivers. So some of the highway into Sandy Bay goes through the riverbeds.
yes,
And
right. I remember.
nowadays, there are these floods. There's so many floods happening, and also it's like back to the old days when when Dry River come down and you couldn't cross. It's kind
Right.
of like some ways back to that for them
Okay.
in the
So they're
north. So
isolated.
it's
So the community is a little more isolated.
I wouldn't say it's isolated. I would just say that traveling to and from the community is a bit more difficult.
Okay.
Like a lot of the infrastructure, the roads that were developed in the past few years, they were destroyed or damaged by the eruption. Some huge boulders also came down from the volcano. So
So there's
the people in the north felt the hardest impact of the volcano. Like they felt it the most. The people in Sandy Bay, because Sandy Bay,
yeah.
Oya, Fancy, are the places in the north that has good infrastructure. And maybe like when you visited years ago, the community was a little less developed, but nowadays when you go up there prior to the volcano, like a lot of people over the years from those communities work very hard and they build beautiful homes, you know, big
Yeah,
homes.
yeah.
Um, you know, so it's not so much of a community that is like wallowing in, you know, pity and displace. It's a community of hardworking people who
Hmm.
you know,
That's good to
who
hear.
survive and build. And
Yeah.
when the volcano erupted, they felt the brunt of it. Like they got the hardest blows. So
So
right now,
we have a couple of questions
yeah,
from the audience here. One is, as a Jamaican with limited exposure to this part of the history of Vincentian people, I appreciate tonight's films, etc. The question is for me, when did you first learn about the Garifuna Carib people? Well, that's an interesting story. I don't know if you knew about this, Akley, or not. I came to St. Vincent when I was a graduate student at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago. And I took months off, several months off, and came to St. Vincent to look at artists, those who consider themselves artists and those who don't consider themselves artists, but were still making films. And I went around and met a number of artists, including Halsey Norton. I don't know if he's still there. Olive Crease, who was in Barely, and some other artists. Well, while I was there, I was told I was interested to hear about the people. I was looking at layers of culture, African, European, and indigenous cultures, and how this was expressed in art, in music, in language, etc. And then somehow I heard that the people in the north of St. Vincent, the Caribs, that their community was, they were exiled, and the people that were left were very unfriendly, they were savages. Don't go up there.
yeah,
Don't go up to Sandy Bay. So of course I went because I was curious to know. Everybody's telling me not to go. Why are they telling me not to go? So I went. I must say that I was not, greeted warmly, which was understandable because I was an outsider and I was just going on my own. And there had been a number of other anthropologists and other people who had come up there, but they didn't contribute anything. They just took, they just studied the culture or whatever, but then left. So they were wary of people from the outside who were coming in to look or study or, engage. So I left St. Vincent in 81. And I also had asked them while I was there, do you know much about the culture that was exiled? And the people up in Sandy Bay at that time really did not know about the culture that left. They only knew that they were exiled, but they had no idea where they went.
yeah.
So I came back to Chicago, where I was living at the time. And I was living near Northwestern University, and there's an excellent Africana library. So I went to the library to try to read as much as I could about the Black Caribs. That's what they were called, at that time.
Right.
The Garifuna wasn't a word that was known. So I spent many years kind of looking and reading and trying to find as much as I could, which was not a whole lot, just there's a lot more scholarly research now, but at that time there wasn't a whole lot, except Sojourners of the Caribbean by, I can't remember her name, Nancy, do you know who I'm talking about? Anyways, it was one of the books that I read. And eventually I was working as a filmmaker in I guess it was 1996 or not 1994. And the partner I was working with at the time was in Belize. And he was there for the Garifuna Settlement Day event. So he called me up and said, you know, this community that you've been talking about since 1981, this is 94. Well, I'm right here at the celebration. Why don't you come down and you'll see this community that you were talking about. So I went to Belize, and that was the beginning of the film, The Garifuna Journey, which is really a story, a collaboration myself and Bob Richards did with the National Garifuna Council of Belize. So we worked together for quite a few years. And then I was invited to St. Vincent to show the film to the community this was I think it was 2006 was the first time I came. And I showed the film in Greg's and in a few other small places around St. Vincent. And the people who came to see the film had an extremely emotional reaction. They were saying, I had no idea that this is the culture that was lost. We don't have a culture. You know, they were literally crying. And I said, well, you don't have the culture you see in the film, The Garifuna Journey, but you do have a culture and you have a story. So I picked up a camera and thought it's really important for them to tell their story. And that was the beginning of the film, Yerame. And then it took another, I don't know, 10 years, maybe not 8 years to make that film. And when I came back is when I met you, when I was doing the shoot in 2012. I believe that was 2012 was when I met you. So it was a long process to make the film, but you know, I'm really pleased that it has made, well, I think it's been a somewhat of a contribution to the community in that it records the story of the people themselves. And it was totally collaborative. I work with the community. I don't go in with a script. So the story kind of reveals itself. So that's how I got there.
Nice. Very nice journey. It's so you come to a place and you get a clue, and then you go digging for it, and then it decides to find you. Yeah.
And then there's a lot of serendipitous things that happen. It's like I say, the documentary gods are working with me. You know, the fact that when I was there in 2012, the fact that the Honduran dance group came and we went to Baliso, and I was able to go to Baliso and collect footage of that whole event. I felt very honored and privileged to have been able to do that, you know, to have been able to record that. So
yeah, I could relate to what you're saying in some regards. Sometimes it feels like something else is guiding you, not just you know, like something that's guiding your instinct about where you should be and what you should focus on. I think I definitely put a spiritual aspect to this, to like creating and to you know, creating art and to creating films. I see I see this as a part of a continuation of the process of decolonializing. It's to further that emancipation. And sometimes, you know, like I speak like you about the gods of filmmaking, and I commit to them as a sort of tool, you know. So it's like I'm not even sure where I'm going with this or why I'm doing it. I just know that I need to, and I need that. I know that the society wants it and needs it, and I have the perspective and the skills to do it, so I have to do it, you know. So that's a part of the blessing of this journey so far.
And it is, each film that I make is a personal journey as well. I'm sure for you as well. You know, it's intellectual, yes, it's artistic, it's also a personal, as you said, spiritual journey. So we have a few more questions. Let's see. This question is for you, Akley. What are you most excited to explore in the film you're developing, and what are your biggest challenges? So this must be a follow-up to the film that I just saw about, you know, your personal journey. Are you making a larger film? And
well, that film that you saw about my personal journey is an 8-minute cut of some of the material that I've managed to put together. It's been you know, like yours, it's been a long process of researching and figuring out the form, the style that I want to use. So as well, to respond to the question, what's most exciting for me is, well, one, I get to like discover different things and then share them, you know, in this process. But the most exciting thing for me, since I heard about the Garifuna and, you know, dive into it and started to like, you know, like research it heavily, the thing that kind of stood out to me with my Vincentian lens is that even though this culture was exiled from St. Vincent, within this component called Vincentian, right? Because Vincentian is not Garifuna, it's something else.
right.
But within this component, there are things, like you say, there's a culture here, even though it was exiled, there are things that point to the indigenous, that point to the pre-colonial, that point to the Garifuna. There are things here, for example, during COVID, you know, when COVID happened. Pretty much everybody on this island responded the same way. Everybody went back to the indigenous bush medicine. You know, like there was this crazy virus out there that was affecting the whole world. Nobody knew how to treat it. But we said, well, we have a bush that we drink when our babies have asthma or problems with respiration. So let's drink that to strengthen our lungs. So it's called trumpet bush, and it's like a umbrella. It's a big leaf.
What's it called?
We call it trumpet bush.
Oh, trumpet bush. Okay.
Yeah. So they you know, so everybody responded in the same way. Like they started to drink lots of bush tea and herbal tea to build up your resistance and your immune. And you know, that's the memory of the enslaved, that's the memory of the indigenous. That's how they would have healed themselves. And that's where the people went back to when this, you know, this big disease, which is similar, which is kind of like paralleled to the coming of the Europeans in the beginning, you know, like they sort of went back to that survival mechanism. There's also like
what are your biggest challenges? But sorry, go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to say is that some of these things are still present in St. Vincent, but the Vincentian doesn't understand that they are actually a part of the indigenous memory of the space.
I see. Yeah.
So there is like a disconnect. So what's exciting for me is to identify them and point them out, and then say, you know, like this is actually this, and this is why we do this, and you know, this is why this is how it is, as opposed to why other people in a different Caribbean nation like Barbados or even Grenada or Trinidad, why they do things slightly different from us, is because we have this element of indigenous interaction. And then you have to understand that St. Vincent only had about 40 years of slavery. So at the end of the end of the period. So for most of that 400 years of, you know, the transatlantic slave trade and all of that and the colonization, St. Vincent was, you know, the foundation of this resistance and this indigenous people.
Right.
So you have to like imagine the time and imagine that some of this old knowledge that we have now comes from then, you know, and it's just to recognize that. I happen to have gone to Guatemala, to Livingston,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And I
okay.
also went to Honduras, to Sambo Creek, in my attempts to
Oh,
research and to
oh,
connect, you
good.
know. And
Yeah.
when I went there, the things that I saw them eating are the same things that we eat in St.
Oh,
Vincent.
like
The,
what?
the only, like plantains, like conchs, you know, they call
Uh,
it in Honduras,
yeah,
they call it caracol, you know, like
yeah,
conchs.
yes.
The only, and coconut, you know, like coconut milk, cassava. It's the same
Cassava.
thing that we, yeah, the same things we eat in St. Vincent. The only
Mm-hmm,
difference is method of preparation, like the recipes, you know.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
we'll make our cassava and turn it into a flour, and you know we'll make a bread,
mm-hmm.
because that's the formation that we have, seeing that we are more colonial, or more colonialized than
Do you
they were
make
in the English sense.
do you make like real bread, like with, yeast and all that, or is it the flat bread
No,
that
no,
you
no,
saw in the film?
no. Some people might mix it with flour, with
Okay,
wheat flour,
got it.
and
Yeah,
sort of like make a fusion bread.
right.
The indigenous people from Sandy Bay, they grind the cassava into a
Yeah,
flour, and then they make a thing that they call bam bam cakes, which is
right.
like a tortilla, like
It's
a,
in the
you know,
it's in the film, actually, in the Euromane film.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly, right. And that's what they do in Belize and throughout Central America as well. So you probably saw that in Guatemala,
yeah.
yeah, and
And
Honduras.
and
Yeah.
yeah. So then you kind of like get this sense that not everything was lost in St. Vincent. Not everything was
Right.
exiled. And
Hmm.
like I said, that for me is very exciting, to come to that realization that something is here. And then when you talk to the Garifuna people in Honduras, because the other thing in this journey, I kind of learned how to speak Spanish. And so I go there, and then I'm like, like I look like them and I could speak like them, but I can't speak Garifuna. So
Right.
so when we start talking now about St. Vincent, and they do not have a good conception of Kalinago. You understand?
Uh-huh.
Because
Uh-huh.
in St. Vincent, Kalinago, it means indigenous, right?
Mm.
While I would propose that Garifuna sort of means the indigenous who were exiled. If you want to
Oh,
put
okay.
meanings and association to the word. So
Oh,
the
okay.
indigenous who are exiled do not know the ways or the customs, or they do not know the full story of the Kalinago, because the Kalinago would be what they call the yellow Caribs, which would be
Hmm.
in a kind of a way the ancestors of the Garifuna.
Yeah,
So,
it's confusing. It definitely gets to be confusing.
well, for me,
Because
it's not confusing. It's
it's not
very clear.
confusing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's something
Yeah.
that I had not heard before. So I can understand how you're saying that, because when I had talked to Edgar Adams, he said, as he mentioned in the film, Garifuna is a totally new name for,
Yeah.
it's not something that Vincentians had heard before, or the Caribs of St. Vincent, only those in the
Mhm.
diaspora. So that makes sense, actually, what you're saying, for sure.
For
So
example,
another, yeah,
mhm.
one other question was, what is the status of Balasso being on sale now? Do you know?
Yeah,
Still for
it
sale?
is for sale. It's for sale at $30 million. It's not owned by the state. It's owned by a private family. I think
Uh-huh.
their last name is Finley, and they don't live in St. Vincent. I think they live in the U.S.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's for sale. I heard one person in a conversation was saying that the Garifuna community could come together and purchase it.
Hmm.
Um, whenever there's a new advertisement, or a new person takes on the task to try to sell it.
Yeah.
People usually protest, but the protest is usually like word of mouth or on social media. It's not really like an organized protest, or any sort of like structured, you know,
Is
protest
there,
as far as I see, like
is,
claim it.
is there any attempt to make a memorial on the island? Has that gone any
I know,
further?
not from the St. Vincent side, but I know that there is work happening right now to sort of create a, if you want to call it like a big sort of ritual or ceremony to honor the space, but it's being organized in the Garifuna diaspora and the community of the Garifuna, not by the Vincentians. So that I could say that the people of the community are trying to get back here to, you know, to honor their ancestors before this place becomes a hotel.
So have there been more folks from the diaspora coming every year or not so often? I guess, you know, when's the last time that they came? Maybe not during
2000
COVID, I guess, right?
2019, yeah, 2019. Yeah, that was the
And-
last time they were visiting. I'm
And then-
always in conversation with people who want to come and who have
Mhm.
plans to come, but this was
Yeah.
during COVID. And I
Okay.
expect that next year, next year, I expect that they will show up next year or even later this year.
And what group is it that you're talking with? Or where are these people?
It's people from the Garifuna diaspora who are based in New York, who are based in the
Okay.
US.
Okay,
They're the ones. There's also two sisters who are based in Roatan, but they're also
Yeah.
Americans who moved back to
I've
Honduras.
been following them on Facebook. I know that. And then also I'm in touch with both, one person I've been kind of working with is Egbert Hajinio. He is part of the Garifuna Nation, and he started a Garifuna school without walls, university without walls, which I think is really, you know, important. Yeah, it's amazing and important. So one of the questions that we had here is, if I was attempt to follow up with my film or expanding it, what might I imagine? Well, what I have to say is that I feel like the two films that I made are acting as a springboard for people within the community to make the films now, not necessarily outsider insider collaboration. It's time, and as you are, to tell your own stories. I think that that's how I see my work being expanded through other filmmakers, really. And let this be sort of an inspiration and a springboard to keep telling these stories. So
I definitely appreciate that. And you know, it's like it's continue the conversation, you know, but the conversation now is like, it's literally like a character of your film decided to take up a camera and to, you know, continue the conversation that he had with you. Exactly.
Right.
So,
precisely. Yeah. So we're, you know, that's my hope. And also, you know, in the film, Nixon's son was on the computer looking at Garifuna music and language and all that stuff. So the world is definitely smaller in a way, and the communication is so good that you can have a nation without borders, and you can communicate and share. And I hope that this gives some of the Caribs, Garifuna, Kalinago on St. Vincent more self-confidence about their own history and their own culture in the face of the wider Vincentian, I don't know if I want to say, maybe not ignorance, but the wider Vincentian, what would it be? Sort of, not ignorance, but something. Yeah.
Rejection or denial, maybe. Yeah,
maybe some denial or just ignoring the history.
Yeah.
You know, it gives more confidence, I would hope, to have this communication with the diaspora, to be able to have more self-esteem, to feel good about one's own history and one's own story, and to present it, you know, on the face of oneself when one goes out into the world, like you, like what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, this is the hope. I mean, I saw myself collaborating and even like working more with other people who like I thought by now St. Vincent would have already found ways to like you know, like use the story of the indigenous people to build maybe its tourism product and create, you know, like a different space. I thought it would have happened by now, but it hasn't. And I'm still doing my part in trying to like facilitate that. In a way, one of my biggest dreams, and it would also do exactly what you're saying for the Kalinago Garifuna people. I know you remember Kingstown. There's one statue in Kingstown, and it's called the Iron Man, and it's the statue to commemorate Vincentians who fought in the World War I and II, and we respect and understand that, and you know, freedom is freedom, and it would have been insane if the Nazis had won. You know, like it would have had implications for everybody. So we respect that and the contribution, but visually now and aesthetically, that statue, that piece of art, if you want to call it that, that monument in Kingstown, looks like the people who colonized us. Like it's the cast of a white European soldier, and it's the only sort of emblem that we have to interact with on a daily basis. But in our imaginations, there's this guy called Joseph Chatelier, and we know bits and pieces, but if only, I mean, there's a monument to him, but it's far from the public. It's up at Dorsetshire Hill. It's not along a public route for the children to see it. And it's so far that you could only interact with it on March the 14th, you know, one time a year. But if I could see Chatelier every single day when I drive past Kingstown, or if, you know, like if I could feel like the spirit and the essence of this person who is so important to every Vincentian, if I could see it in this space, I feel it would do wonders, you know. So for a few years now, many persons have been like using the social media to sort of like call for it and say, not necessarily remove the statue in Kingstown, but give us a statue of Chatelier that is equally magnificent or better than that, so that it could stand as a symbol to inspire the nation, you know, to live up to the ideals of this person who said, no, let we defend this island and let we live and, you know, treat this place like the blessed.
So are there artists on the island that could do posters or do, you know, stencils or something?
Yeah, lots of artists. Many things have been done.
It has been done.
My uncle well, I guess I want to say many of the mass men and the people who do carnival, which is the biggest festival, they've created entire costume bands that tribute to the indigenous, to the Garifuna, to this. You know, many people have made t-shirts and all kind of things, you know, and try to like create this space where we honor the indigenous memory, you know, like when you go to Mexico, Cancun and these places, you see all these little things, and all of this is how you honor the memory and also make business, you know. And in St. Vincent, like what we need is the state apparatus to also like, you know, like make a statement and say, you know, we need to do this to inspire the nation. We need a statue of our hero. Right.
So have you done any filming of these events at Carnival of the you know, the bands that represent the indigenous? Would I be able to see it?
There are footage, there is footage, but it was before my time. It was in the 70s. And the 60s.
So not anymore. They don't do that.
No. Some people may try to do it, but it doesn't come off as authentic as it was back in the day. The other thing is the cultural transformation is happening straight across the board. So even Carnival is losing its traditional roots, you
Yeah,
know, in terms of like an island festival. Now it's becoming more like a Rio, where it's
yeah,
like more of a fete and a party and
right.
feathers, and not necessarily using the mass art form to tell the stories of the space. You know, it's all changing to become this
And what about,
capitalist thing that says the same,
right,
it's selling the same.
and what about Nine Mornings? Is Nine Mornings still happening? Is that more traditional?
It's
More
still
of a,
happening. It's
is that more
uh
traditional?
I would say there is a traditional element to it where people like do you know, like the old instruments come out for nine mornings, you know, like
Mhm.
the old pan men and the boom, you know, they come out for nine mornings.
Okay,
Um
okay.
they also sometimes have like a match, you know, with flambeaus, and you know, they come out for nine mornings. But
Uh-huh,
nine mornings still it has this very Christian undertone,
I
you know,
see.
very Christianity based. So it's more, I mean, everybody
Hmm.
comes out because, you know, it's 3 in the morning, the kids come out on their bikes, there's lots of community kind of vibe,
Hmm.
but it
Hmm.
definitely feels very churchy, very Christian, you know,
Okay.
and
Nine
it's
Mornings
not like
for people who don't
indigenous.
know, for people who don't know what Nine Morning is, who might be watching, it's the nine
Mhm.
mornings before Christmas, correct?
Yeah, yes.
And it's a
So 9 mornings
celebration.
before,
Yeah.
it's I guess it's a celebration of of cleaning, or celebrating cleanliness, or cleaning the spirit, or cleaning the space, cleaning the atmosphere of the island. And I guess
Hmm.
they do it with praise and with worship. I guess that's the idea. And
Hmm.
it's 9 mornings leading up to Christmas. It's also a Vincentian tradition to wash down your house, like clean all of the walls, the windows, the entire house is usually washed down leading up to Christmas as well. But people wake up at 3 in the morning and go to the center of their communities to celebrate together.
And
That's what
that's
9 morning is.
and that's specifically to for Saint Vincent. I don't know any other island that does that in the Caribbean.
Yeah, just St. Vincent alone.
Just Saint Vincent. Yeah.
I think it may have been like coming out of, you know, like the Catholic would do these processions, you know, what the
Hmm.
origins of Carnival, you know, like they would do these processions and have, you know, big installations that would maybe
Okay.
like installation of Christ or whatever. And
Hmm.
the previously enslaved would also see this thing happening and decide to make their own version of it, and
Hmm.
sometimes hijack it.
Hmm.
So it's out of that collision, you know, that 9 mornings came to be.
Came to be.
So
Yeah.
yeah. It's all about freedom, you know. It's all about claiming freedom and claiming space.
Yeah.
That's what these
But
festivals came out of. Yeah.
so tell me what you're working on now. I know you're working on this one film. What else are you
Right.
doing? How, tell me what else you're working on.
So right now I'm developing and filming, and also like just trying to organize and meet my deadline. I was recently contacted by the University of Wales
Hmm.
to create a film about a plantation owner in St. Vincent who is Welsh, and on reparations and on Emancipation 1834, he received reparations for his enslaved in St. Vincent, and he took that reparations money and pretty much helped to create this said university 200 years ago.
Oh, really?
So his,
Wow.
his estate was called the Camden Park Estates. And
Where is
today
it?
Camden Park is on the southern leeward side of St. Vincent, the
Okay.
central Kingston area.
Yeah.
Um, and well, not central Kingston, but that area. It's close to
Yeah.
central Kingston. And
Hmm.
it's the place where they have the I guess the most advanced infrastructure as a shipping container port. It's where most of the the things come
I
into the
see.
island from outside.
Yes.
So it's like a very, very important piece of property today. Very important, very valuable. It's been developed, lots of industrial, there's factories there, offices, all kind of things. And so the film really tries to explore the legacy of this piece of land and what came of it, what became of it, what became of the land, what it represents to the people. And also, join into the conversation to call for reparations
Yeah.
and to also like denounce what happened in St. Vincent. Yeah, so
Yeah. Seems
that's
so.
that's what I'm
It
working
seems
on
so
right now.
backward to give reparations to the colonials and not
Yeah.
to the folks who were most impacted by the slave trade and
But you-
by colonialism. Yeah, seems
yeah,
totally backward.
yeah, it's
So,
crazy because
yeah. Is there
the
a bigger movement for reparations among the
oh yeah,
Caribs?
there is
Or-
there is well, I wouldn't say among the Caribs. The reparation conversation sort of like comes out of that Pan-Africanist,
yeah,
movement. So
yeah.
Rastafarian, and also the I guess the modern day Black Power intellectuals or the
Yes.
Black Power from the 60s and the 70s who are
Yeah.
now politicians or lawyers or they're the ones who are calling for reparations. I haven't heard the indigenous community in St. Vincent say we want reparations. I haven't heard the Garifuna say they want reparations, but they're the ones who deserve it more than anybody else because their landmass, their home, their entire nation
Right.
was taken from.
Was taken away.
So if they were supposed to call for it, I think their demands or their call would be, it would be a powerful call. So
Yeah.
it's to get them to join into the conversation of reparations. I have to let you know though that there was a royal visit about a week, 2 weeks ago, with the
Oh,
I'm
two.
not so good with the royals,
Okay.
but it's not Harry. Harry is the one who's with Meghan, right? Who left?
Yes.
Who
Right.
like
Right.
with this? Is the
Right.
other one? Is the
Yeah.
other one and Kate or something like that.
Kate.
So
Right. Yeah.
so they came through and they gave them the royal visit and red carpet and tour around and started the typical post-colonial let's honor the people who colonized us business, so that
How
went
was
on.
that? How was that?
I don't know, I didn't see it because I wasn't a
Okay.
part of it,
Okay.
but I was a part of the people who are in the streets, the few people who are in the streets, mostly Rastafarian, who were calling, who pretty much started to protest. There was a small group of people who were protesting from the airport. Every stop they made, the people, followed and, they demanded that their voice would be heard. And I think it's the first time it has happened. I don't know if it happened before my time, but it was great to see it and then to film it and be a part of it.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time right now. Maybe the voice of the Vincentian is raising in terms of it
Well,
demanding what it deserves.
I look forward to seeing more of your films for sure. That'd be nice to see more of your films. So make sure that you keep me on your social media list so that I can follow your progression. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we might be wrapping up soon, but just to bring it back and then to make it more of a conversation about film. So coming from where I'm coming from, and to go back to one of the previous questions, the biggest challenge for me as a filmmaker in St. Vincent has been like interacting with the state in terms of like developing film in the community. Well, when you came and you said you interacted with the creatives before you even started to make this film. And in terms of like a creative industry here, it's very focused on carnival and music and live entertainment like that. So our film sector is weak. It's currently kind of like thriving because you know, over the past 10 years, some people went and, you know, made like investigations and made a stake in film and brought, you know, brought what they learned back home and started to develop it. And more people in the community are sort of responding to it and are taking up cameras and making films.
Well, that's
So,
good.
so that it's good, but in order to maximize this thing, the biggest challenge is to find ways to empower these people, you know. Yesterday when we were having a talk back there was this there's this young man who made an amazing film. It's a narrative film, you know, about things in the community, social issues, but it's a powerful film. And for me, when I look at him, it's really about how to empower him, how to, you know, how to find ways to get him to do what what he seems to be able to do so naturally, you know, how to get him training, how to get him access to understanding the industry better, you know, in terms of like distribution, in terms of financing, all of that. So it's really like how to like develop this thing that seems to be rising right now in St. Vincent, like how to support it. We don't have any sort
That's
of
your
like
biggest,
national,
that's your biggest
there's no,
challenge.
there's
Yeah.
no national plan
That
or
is
fund
supportive.
or grant.
So
Yeah.
it's important to connect with other Caribbean nations, because you're not
Yeah.
alone in that. When I was in Puerto Rico recently, meeting with filmmakers, that's exactly what they were saying, is that they would like to reach out and meet with other Caribbean filmmakers to sort of form a consortium almost of Caribbean filmmakers that you could support each other. So, yeah.
I
That
think
sounds
if anything,
like common, especially in smaller islands where, you
yeah,
know, where there needs to be a focus on, where there isn't as much of a focus on cultural. And I also feel like, you know, there's a lot of imperialism that comes onto the island culturally, a lot of other
definitely.
the music and, you know, especially through social media and stuff. So you really have to work at concentrating on your culture and the positive aspects of your culture and how to bring that, you know, to the front.
Yeah, because
You
you
know,
know,
because
culture.
you're
No, go ahead. Yes, you were saying.
well, just that, you know, it's very difficult to find your voice when there's so much information coming in from outside.
Yeah.
You know, so that's, in fact, going all the way back to this article that I wrote in 1985. I was, you know, we're looking at artists, as I said, who considered themselves artists. And one of the artists that I wrote about, he was Vincentian, and he only painted in black and white and gray, and only from photographs that he saw in North American magazines. So he would paint pictures of snow-capped mountains and dogs and, you know, animals that you would never see on St. Vincent. But to him, that's what he thought art was, because that's what he saw in magazines. And where were the magazines coming from but outside? So it's not a whole lot different now, except that there's a little more consciousness about the outside influences. And it takes people like yourself and others to not fight it, but to bring your voice forward. And so I hope that you're able to do more of it. Don't give up is what I'm saying. You know, many people will tell you, no, you can't do this, you can't do it, but you have to persevere. And if you feel strongly and passionately about it, you have to do it. So best wishes to you for doing, you know, for the future. And I look forward, as I said, to seeing your work in the future.
Well, thank you. I look forward to seeing your work as well.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And feel free to, you know,
keep
get
in
in touch
touch.
anytime.
Okay,
Yeah, man.
will do.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.